trigger-happy policemen have shot another victim. Another set of condolence visits, condolence messages, live protests, social media protests, hashtags, promise to prosecute the officers, and a call to end SARS. But with all of this, when will it stop? Another victim being shot? Well, finally, the much-awaited coalition of results from the River State governorship elections is underway in Port Harcourt, the state capital. Now, River State's resident electoral commissioner, Ubuefanga, has declared the centre open and results are beginning to trickle in. And of course, some parties are unhappy and they say the results are not credible. This is Plus Politics, and I am Mariana Cohn. Well, the police have provided the names of 2 of the 3 officers arrested over the fatal shooting of Kolade Johnson here in Lagos. The officers were identified as Ogunyemi Olalekan, an inspector, and then Godwin Orji, a sergeant, and Ojiawuna Samuel, a corporal. Now, these officers who were involved were taken into custody as part of the initial police response to the killing that has gripped the country and sparked nationwide outrage. Now, how do we stop this senseless and needless killings by trigger-happy police officers? Ending SARS or by reforming the police? And some people are saying scrap the whole thing. Well, I have with me to discuss this, because it's not just me. I have Sam Adeleke. He's a public affairs analyst. It's good to have you join us. Good evening, Miriam. All right. And then, of course, I have Adeni Kunu. He's also a public affairs analyst. It's good to have you join us. It's been a while, Adeni.
Well, we have to survive, really. So
okay. So I'm going to go straight to it. The Nigeria Police Force has revealed the identity of these men. They have said we have found 2 out of these 3. We saw pictures, we saw condolence visits, just like I started. How many of these do we have to keep going for, or how many online protests, how many hashtags do we have to keep talking about before this issue is addressed? Kuno, I'll start with you.
Well, let me say first that it's better to speak out than to keep quiet. It becomes worse if you don't speak out. And since fate has made us to chance upon the use of the social media as a tool of advocacy, so that's another positive. But if we must consider certain negatives, I'll begin with the fact that there is a history of not making people actually, bear the brunt of their actions. I know very well that a certain Maina in this country of the Ministry of Interior was said to have committed a treasonable offense, and it disappeared into thin air, even if I've not determined how thin the air is. And we couldn't find Maina for a number of years, only for him to appear. And we found out that in the period he was a wanted man, he actually experienced promotion and was drawing salaries from the coffers of the federal government. So that symbolizes our inability as a people, especially those who have the responsibility to bring to book the people who really have robbed the nation of its common heritage.
Is that really the fault of the leaders, or could it also be that we the people are docile? We only hide behind those Twitter and Facebook accounts, or hide behind the phone calls, for example, or, whatever it is, but we never really, the average person, I might be wrong, please correct me, who goes out on a protest, most times is going out for what's in it. We've seen several times on TV when people are asked, why did you come out to protest? We don't know, they just gave us money.
Well, before my friend comes in, I want to apologize because we're supposed to share this platform.
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry. I have to say that before people conclude that something appears to be ineffective, you have to look at its antecedents. In 2012, the majority of people who protested didn't get stipends for their protest. They felt you don't wake up on the 1st of January and you tell you that there has been an increase in the price of petroleum.
That's just one out of the many protests.
But I think that we can allude to it.
Can we base our analysis on just 1%?
It was a significant happening in our history that reverberated in major cities of this country, from Port Harcourt to Abuja. So we can always refer to it as a very strong point in our history. We can't jettison the importance of social media. And I have to tell you that even if we feel that these persons are not brought to book, the fact of reconscientization is worthy of note here. May I just hold on for my friend to also have a say?
Adeleke, I'm just wondering, he's talking about reconscientization and continuously speaking out. Yes, it's a good thing. I'm not in any way trying to demean that.
Right.
But how well has it worked out for us? How many souls has it really saved? Because this is happening every day. In Lagos, maybe once in a while, but I just gave you an information. In River State is worse off. SARS is a menace.
Until we get to the point when we know that our lives, everybody's life is in danger, we will not take this beyond social media activism. Let's consider France. France, for the first 7-8 weeks of this year, they were on the streets protesting against the economic reforms of President Emmanuel Macron. They tagged the protest, the yellow vest protest. It only dissipated a few weeks ago. This was a country that was built on revolution. Now, I am want to say that Nigeria got its independence on a platter of gold. We're not like South Africa, in which, or other countries that fought with their blood to get their independence. That is why, on a normal day, when things like this happen, we should be on the streets camping and having vigils at government house across the country by now. But because our leaders know that, okay, let's give them time. Within the week, it will fizzle out and then we'll move on. We still do not have that power, that staying power, that sustainability in terms of ensuring that until something is done, we are not leaving the trenches. We are not leaving the war front. We are just only making these noises, but the noise do, of course, go a long way. For example, the police commissioner, we saw the pictures, was actually at the news of the mother of the slain person, Kolade Johnson, and begging and apologizing and so sober. But they released a statement this afternoon, police PRO, saying that these persons, that's this inspector and the sergeant, they will be subjected to internal disciplinary action. That is very, very significant. Why should that be? These guys should be charged immediately and prosecuted and let the law take its course. Nigerians still believe that until something is done and until police personnel are prosecuted, scapegoats, are put out there, there's a show of shame, people go to jail for these atrocities, nothing will be done.
Again, I'd just like to remind you of the customs, road safety officer that shot a man dead. What's that story now?
The Badagry story that happened earlier in the year.
So again, it makes me really worried. Have we become used to the fact that people can die any day? These things, are we becoming a bit too docile and complacent? I'll tell you what. Let's say, for example, a fire incident in Australia or something happens in France. We're quick to say, pray for France, but our people are dying. Today, Chibok was flattened.
Oh, come on.
It was burned to the ground. Nobody is saying, pray for Chibok. So could it also be that sometimes we play the ostrich in situations like this, Kuno?
Well, I must say that as much as the advocacy is needful, the quality of knowledge that the average Nigerian has must also be double-checked. We did not pray for Mozambique, but we prayed for New Zealand. And I tell you that there is a deconfiguration into anomaly of major mindsets, especially over 51% of those who have the capacity to understand their things. For instance, the last elections, over 84 million registered. The percentage of those between the ages of 18 and 35 were 51% plus. It tells you that we have a greater number of young persons who you'd expect to do more. Algerians have been on the streets for the past weeks because Abdulaziz Bouteflika, that has been confined to his chair because of a stroke, it's 80 years, been there for 20 years, still want to go for another term. It took the younger population alongside some other older persons to be able to say, you can't be bearing rule. And he had to rush back from Switzerland, where obviously he's been recuperating. It then means that we have to move from stage one, which is immense social media presence and somewhat of advocacy, to, as my friend said, getting on the streets and knowing that at times you could be hungry, the sun could scorch you, the rain could buffet you, but you're really driving at something very important.
I'm sorry, I don't know why you're sounding very like a gentleman, but I'm sorry. The average Nigerian will tell you, I don't have food to eat. I'm not safe. Oh, is it me that SARS will shoot?
As a matter of fact, the average Nigerian...
do you want me to sacrifice my life for people who don't care about me?
The average Nigerian will suffer deprivation and hunger because of his or her inaction. It's only a matter...
How many of us know this?
No. They know some of these things, but they are refusing to let the reality sink in. And until you sit down and say, hunger wouldn't throw me out of life if I first of all fight for what I have to fight for and prevent the longer hunger. We have short-term hunger, medium-term hunger, and long-term hunger.
I've never heard it.
Now, this particular hunger that most of them are afraid of is short-term hunger. When you allow short-term hunger, you prevent medium-term hunger and long-term hunger. In the absence of fighting to prevent the short-term hunger, you are preparing yourself for the day where it's going to be a combination of the medium-term hunger and long-term hunger, which oftentimes comes as dividends of poor leaderships and, of course, the lack of proper sensitization to things that the followership should fight for, because there's always the leaders and the followers. For instance, he talked about France. The yellow vest protesters have been there for months now, and they're insisting you can't make our lives miserable. You can't make transportation terrible. You can't make electricity something we can't afford. The reason is you have to make the leadership understand that you are, after all said and done, our servants. And that is why here we have a situation where somebody will fix a borehole and they say, please, sir, we are begging the leadership. In fact, people like that need to be purged with any kind of mental hypo so that they can get themselves back. You don't tell them we are begging you, sir. You tell them it's your responsibility and you have not been doing this. Because the reverse has become the case and people are operating in a very negative psychological posture. Okay,
I'm coming to you now, Adeleke. In other climes, the police is, in fact, everywhere, even in Nigeria, they're paid with taxpayers' money, whether we like it or not. And their number one duty is to protect and serve. But in these parts of the world, we instead are, we're the hunted. We're not protected. We're not being served. Instead, whatever frustrations these people have, they take it out on us. How do we change that dimension? And again, Kunu said it has to do with our leadership. If the average police officer is not well taken care of, does he see himself as you and I, or does he see it as us against them?
Interestingly, the acting president last year, when he was holding the reins of power, when President Buhari was out, now commissioned a reform, reform the police. That was after a series of protests when there was a major incident last year. But that also did not yield any tangible effort. The beginning of this, because right now, no matter how much we talk, this is only scratching the surface. We need to look at how the police can be reformed, starting from how they are being recruited, starting from their remuneration, starting from their standard of living, starting from the benefits and the packages that they have. What makes them even a dignified human? Where they live, where they stay, how their children are being taken care of.
I'll tell you a quick story, if time permits me. I was talking about police welfare, and a police officer called me, I remember. He said he was just posted to that city, and he had an officer he was reporting to. So when that happens, a payment is done, more like a transfer amount to help you resettle in the new city. He never saw it. He was sleeping in an abandoned vehicle outside his police station.
Wow.
He had to wake up early, take his shower, because the money he was getting, he had to send it home to his family. So again, I'm not saying that it's okay for police officers to do what they do. Let's even just talk about them in general.
Right.
But again, we also need to understand the environment, the terms, the conditions in which they work in. Maybe we should start from there. Have you been to a police barracks before, for example? So what should we, the people, because we're looking for solutions here, we're not trying to point fingers. So where do we start It's not enough to go out and protest, but what should we be insisting on?
Thank you. I like us to understand that in advanced climes, even if the UK has been existing for eons of years, and America after independence is over 200 years, there are still things we can draw from greater democracies, right? Because we learn to grow. In the UK, for instance, you do not get into the police and you can't find your butt at Scotland Yard if nobody knows you in your community. That begins from the system we operate of having central database. This country should have had a census since 2016, but a lot of things appear to be more important than population census. And how do you solve the problem of a country if you don't have data to work with? If a man has a child with a wife, the amount you feed will be smaller. Immediately you're very prolific and have 4 children. Perhaps you added another woman. If you have the religious opportunity or the wherewithal to do that, it is evident that the amount you feed will increase. Now, I have referred to that domestic front so that we can better understand the kind of country we live in. It is constitutional that every 10 years you hold a census. You have not held a census in 3 years, but you have joyfully held elections. What are the figures you want to work with to solve the problem of the people that perhaps elect you into these respective offices? That's beginning from there. Now, when you take such census, the figures enables you to understand that within such and such geographical area, there are 10 police officers, 20 police officers, because population census also accommodates the job you do. So we're able to know we have 9 police officers across the 36 states of the Federation. And these 9 police officers have deputy inspectors of police, 3 who are in Abuja, 2 who are in Lagos, 3 who are in Kano, and 2 who are in Port Harcourt. Now, the figures are before you. You're able to now deploy resources that, okay, we've not had training for those people in 10 years. And we need to recruit more because the population has increased. Maybe the last time we held census, the population was about 140. Now we're looking at 198 million or approximately 200 million people. Nigeria has about 385,000 police officers. That is about 1 to 500 persons in the country. You're supposed to have about 1 to 40 or 1 to 80. The 80 is in excess. So if a police officer has to take care of 500 persons, I've painted the picture of difficulty. Now, who are the kinds of people that we recruit into the police officers? I've been privileged to see pictures and I think some videos of the recruitment of people who want to get into the police. I have also been privileged to speak with a number of people. I tell you, the foot soldiers of the Nigeria Police Force, with every sense of truth, are most unqualified to be there. Because the basics... But
in a country where there's a death of these police officers, and I'm not in any way saying that it's okay. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's okay to just have any Tom, Dick, and Harrison, you know, in the police force. Right. But the picking process is not... I mean, Nigerians are not supposed to tell these police officers, who some have gone to Scotland Yard and have seen how it's done, on how to do it. Because there are genuine people who are graduates who... don't have to even be graduates, but are fit for the job, that never get to see the, you know, that room. They never get the recruitment. So really, again,
there is a deliberate conspiracy by the Nigerian system
to
keep the police force the same way it is. Because see, what is happening in Nigeria is not out of this world. In the sense that we see how other climes run their police force and their police systems and their police service. Just replicate success. Don't tell us that Nigerian case is an exceptional case. Like you said, these officers travel all over the world to attend courses, to attend trainings, and they see how these things are being done. Nigeria cannot tell me that they cannot afford to employ at least 2 million police officers and pay them well. We keep saying that these guys are not, there are not enough people to enter the system. No. Raise the bar, increase the pay, make the system work. So I think this agitation that people are currently onto right on social media should start from the presidency and to the Inspector General of Police, because unfortunately we're on a central system of government.
I was about to say that.
If it was federated, in which every state has control of the police, so okay, let's start from the state, from the government house. Let the governor allocate more funds to the police and ensure that it is properly audited and things are done properly. But now we have to go start from the federal, such that allocate funds. Let these funds be spent properly. Let people that are educated be employed. Pay them well. Let their welfare package be proper. Let them be human beings again.
I think we have a lot of things to discuss in very little time. Talking about the police in itself.
Yeah.
The Met Police is totally different from, I mean, this is how it works in the UK. They're all independent. In fact, we cannot even have an independent police because of the system of government that we actually use. There's really no independence, even with all the ministry departments and agencies that are supposed to be independent.
If you permit me to say this, I think it is very, very unnecessary to say that the state governors will use the police force if really they have a state police.
That was the argument of the state police then, when the campaign...
For me, I think it is a most ridiculous expression by those who should know better. When your legislation is strong enough, the people fall in line.
Right.
So that simply means when you set up state police, you tell them there are certain things you cannot do. And immediately they read the riot act to them, they know that they've got limitations or boundaries. Now, the Los Angeles Police Department wouldn't go to the Chicago Police Department and want to take charge.
Because it's not their jurisdiction.
It becomes even more ridiculous where you have a federated police force and you have that it is the state governors that oftentimes buy vehicles, buy ambulances. There is a convoluted and even confusing system of operations here.
Right.
And I tell you, those things, according to what Lakon said, I hope I'm correct. Sam. According to what Sam said, these things are not rocket sciences. They are things that we can look at and make work. But you see, when people have intentions that are very, very negative or self-serving, they will always want to keep certain things the way it is. Now, do you know very well that if you recruit people who have been properly educated, it will be very difficult to use them as your stooges or agents of crimes or accomplices to nefarious activities. So you'd prefer to actually get on the employ of the police force those that could be pushed here, tossed there, and those who could be told to go, and foolishly they will definitely heed and act negatively even if it was in the affirmative for you. Having said that, I think we really have to engage very vehemently because it affects us. No matter how we appear properly educated, maybe perhaps we use highfalutin words to describe all those things. The reality is an uneducated policeman is as dangerous as an armed robber with a gun, and that could be wielded carefully and anybody could actually die. Because these same guns that they use to kill people carelessly, we know that it is rife in the US. There are other countries of the world where we don't have stray bullet issues. And before a bullet strays, you would have cocked it. There's always a safety lock. So for a bullet to be described as stray, you have actually unlocked the safety and directed it somewhere. So it's a process.
The intention to kill.
Thank you. There's an intention, there's a process to deliberately eliminate or snuff out a life. So I think we should expunge very quickly when we talk about killing. You could say there's nothing like alleged killing because obviously the dead person is dead.
Accidental discharge.
Excuse me, sir. That
or even like the word is the excessive use of force.
I don't even understand.
Why will you?
The reality is, in the first place, you are looking for a cultist at a viewing center.
An alleged cultist.
No, the reality is, what is even the word cultist? I belong to a cult. The church in my, the members of my church, we have a cult where men have association.
Right.
Our women also belong to a cult. So we have to even understand what cult means. You could say some cults that are involved in dark acts.
Right.
You have to specify. I think the lack of understanding of even the denotative meaning of some words appears to be causing a lot of trouble.
It brings me to the question of what is SARS actually meant to do? They're a special anti-robbery squad. So you hear things like, oh, they saw a laptop in my vehicle and they said I was a Yahoo boy. Oh, they checked my phone and they said I was, you know, you hear.
And even they see,
oh, I have a tattoo. Or you have dread. So
are they not the fashion police?
I'm just wondering, what kind of training do they give these men? Because they do not act like even normal police officers who you can even engage with. And this is the same set of people. We are the people who are complaining about how the army acts to us civilians. But then we're seeing something much more deadly from a civil force that has been trained to
protect
deal with us in a civil manner, and they're dealing with us as if we were animals.
Yes, if I must steal some time off Sam, because I know there's a stone to actually elucidate the point.
Sam is not going to let you steal more time.
Okay.
But just go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, I have to say very sincerely that we appear to be very unserious people. We're as unserious and as ridiculous in the eyes of the world. And it hurts me because I can say very happily that I'm an excellent product of the public school system in this country. I attended a public primary school, a government-owned public secondary school. My universities for respective degrees public. And I've had the privilege of sitting with people who went to the best schools across the world, both Nigerians and foreigners. And I was able to brilliantly hold my own with every sense of humility. So I'm a proud Nigerian product. But I cannot risk the lives and destinies of my children with the public system that has produced me, because it has been made mess of. And that is the bitterness that I have when I have to talk about this country, Nigeria. I'm looking at the next 50 years because I'll be here in good health to see my grandchildren. That's for the record, so the world take note. Doing great things. Will I be able to look at the history of Nigeria and say that indeed we're good? Because I tell you, I don't know if my kids are going to really stay here except things get better. And I do not want to make things become worse for them. Because for those of us who experience the good side of this country, we try as much as possible to hustle extra to make lives better. Now, I've referred to me and my own personal concerns to describe the fear and the hopelessness of many other persons who went through the public system in this country and cannot vouch for the system that produced them. That is one of the most unfortunate things. For instance, it's like a man is a drug addict, peddles in the worst of drug, and it happens, or maybe a son happens to be in the negatives, whereas the father did the best of things. I want to say here that we have to fight, and the fight must be now. And let nobody be afraid of death, because I've seen somebody who sat, and the so-called stray bullet, he came back from Atolodia, Papa, around Tolu area. Our viewers can understand, some of them know this place. He came back from his work, the wife gave him his dinner. He sat, and a bullet came from his window and killed him right there when he was to eat.
Wow.
So if somebody talks about, hey, what will we do? Hey, we want to die. The death that we kill, will kill. The Second World War, people were taken to concentration camps. Some people survived it. So that is the mystery of death and the phenomenon of death. Those who will go by certain things will go. In all, I've seen people who smoked everything and they lived up to 100 in good health. I've seen people who tried it twice, they left Earth. So we have to fight to rescue our destiny.
And unfortunately, one impediment to this futuristic hope is because we are a country that thrives so much on religious fanaticism and religious we peddle so much hope. Your turn will come, it will be better, don't worry, you will get there.
That's even Yoruba philosophy as well.
Exactly. So everyone is having faith, everyone is hoping that, oh, tomorrow it will be my turn, tomorrow I will be there. I don't want to go on the streets now because
faith without works is dead. So when are we going to put in the work and stop having faith? I mean, I'm sure that every religion is saying, don't sit on your backside. It's time to stand up and do something for, you know. I'm just thinking.
Well,
where do we, in closing, because we do not have time and we have some reports that we want to put up. What do we think we need the police to do? Because I'm a bit also uncomfortable with the fact that they said they're going to have some internal disciplinary. A man is dead. A child has lost her father. A mother has lost in cold blood. Yes, a mother has lost a son. A woman has lost her husband. We cannot.
A newborn baby has lost a father.
I'm just wondering, can we just have internal disciplinary actions?
No, I think that there are certain things that should not be done in secret because you create an immediate impression of not being just.
Right.
For the first time, I'm happy that even the leadership at the National Assembly actually held a position on that. I'm happy that it has gotten up to their throats and it's choking their breath because they should also do a little bit of legislation and expedite a lot of things so that we can have a proper reform police. We do a lot of things with sentiment in this country. I told a colleague this morning that if you as a woman have the ability to occupy the lead position. So far you can deliver, then please go ahead. I don't have a problem with that. Anybody who feels a little bit intimidated should up their game. End of story.
Exactly.
And I think we should come to a stage where we do not get people into any government organization except they merit it. In saying that, and as I move ahead, federal character is a fraud. It indulges people not to work hard. It makes those who don't deserve to occupy positions to occupy it. And it's actually a carve-out of people who want to continue to perpetuate quacks and incompetent people in particular positions.
Okay,
because
we
when
do
you
not
look
have
at the
too much
country
time
and say federal character,
All
where on earth? Federal what? We don't even practice that in the first place.
Adeleke, quickly, because we need to round up. Where do we go from here?
I do think that right now there should be a public commission of inquiry on a total and comprehensive reform of the police force. Just as we have the Oputa panel, let there be a Kolade Johnson panel. And this should be a significant and symbolic watershed that will change the entire police force, right from the top to the bottom.
Maybe it's about time. Well, we want to say thank you to you, Sam Adeleke, Public Affairs Analyst, and Adeni Ikunu, also Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
All right. Well, when we return, we'll be going to River State. Yes, River State finds its way into the news every single day. But then, hey, something good is happening. Apparently, the suspended coalition has resumed today. And, of course, we'll be giving you more details on it. It's still Plus Politics. We'll be right back after the break.